Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Father's Friday. I'm your host, Brian Anderson, and today we have our first non-dad. We have Sarah Johal with us. She is an incredible mother, leader, nonprofit founder, and all around just like great innovator in this space of childcare and care in general. So I'm really thrilled to have her in this conversation today, and I wanted to just jump right in and talk about CareSprint, her nonprofit, and how it can benefit dads to really connect with our families and disconnect from our corporate professional identities, which many of us, as we know through this series, are really beholden to because of the culture we live in. So without further ado, welcome, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brian, so much. And thank you for bringing this terrific series back this year. Very grateful to be part of it.
Yeah, I think you've been a part of this since day one when we first envisioned Father's Friday as kind of an offshoot of the Mother's Monday campaign. So yeah, thank you for all of your guidance and feedback and leadership as this is developed. But let's dive in. Just I mentioned CareSprint. It's a new nonprofit that kind of has grown out of a number of different initiatives that you've been a part of. Can you just share a little bit about like what the goal with CareSprint is and how dads can use this resource?
Absolutely. CareSprint is on a mission to create a stronger culture of care, particularly here in America, because we rank last place in work-life quality and family care. So the good news is there's only one way to go, and that's up. And fathers and employers play a critical role in that care economy. So our goal was to bridge business solutions, policy solutions, open resources. So no matter what level, any leader can sprint into action to make that place better. And so we have wonderful resources on our site, consulting resources that we partner with as well to bring that mission forward.
Excellent. Yes. And many of the books that I have on my shelves behind me, including my own, can be found there. But also just, amazing organizations, large and small, that are kind of tackling these different aspects. And really just love that you brought me in and highlighted me in the work I've been doing with dads, but also just not just childcare, right? I think the full span of elder care, care for ourselves, our partners. I think there's a lot of hidden care elements that go unnoticed. Do you see any, I don't know, bright spots or shifts that give you optimism or hope for the future?
I do, particularly over these past 5, 10 years, where we're seeing fathers become much more engaged than any other generation before them. So that's a wonderful shift. But with that shift comes challenges because the workplace, our systems, the level of thought leadership, they were not built for working parents and caregivers to succeed. So they're trying to navigate all these broken systems that CareSprint is trying to solve together at scale. But really, that's been the huge, bright, shining spot is that fathers want to be more engaged more than ever. We're seeing them, quote unquote, parent out loud much more than they ever have to in between those spaces between work and home as well.
Yeah. Over in Britain, they've got that great Parenting Out Loud with Elliot Ray, which is great. And then, our work here with Fathering Together, yours with CareSprint, and the larger care network that we're both a part of. Just this morning, though, it's funny. I was dropping my daughters off at camp, and it starts at 9. So we got there 5 minutes early. No counselors anywhere. They come strolling up, teenagers, 9:05, and a couple parents and I are just like, do they not understand we work? Do they not understand like we have to like juggle when these things happen? So, there really is a disconnect, as you say, between the care that we have and the relationships we have with our families and kind of that corporate business world that also has demands on our time.
Completely. And to your earlier point, we at CareSprint don't think of fatherhood or motherhood as a singular experience within our caregiving space. It's all types of care, right? Whether you are caring for a sister, taking her to chemo appointments, maybe you're taking care of your in-laws and their aging and healthcare needs too, right? Particularly the sandwich generation, you and I are both right smack in the middle of that too. And that's causing a lot more pressure, demands, and challenges more than ever, particularly a spot with fathers in the workplace too. We know right now that their levels of belonging are at an all-time low.
Right.
So again, that's only a place for us to help support and bridge that back up for them.
Yes, 100%. And I think that belonging and that community is what we drive for with Fathering Together and our work with Father's Friday and other platforms. But um, yeah, there's just so many barriers, right? And so I would love to know, like, what are some strategies that you're seeing companies or just individual, champions and dads stepping up to make those changes and to shift that culture away from just I'm a breadwinner and that's all I have to do to more, empathy and care.
I think you said the word right there, leading with empathy, and seeing a lot more senior leaders really take that practice to heart, right? They're sharing when they're going to go take their paternity leave, and they're going to take the entire time of it as well, right? Practicing by leadership. And that has a huge positive impact for all the other fathers to feel, or soon to be fathers one day, feel that they have that space and that support because they're seeing their leaders take action by that practice too. So I would just say that the leadership is getting better in terms of practicing and parenting out loud. That's phenomenal. And we're also seeing a lot more holistic support in terms of benefits, services, solutions that really carries that gamut of caregiving as well.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely I love seeing these companies stepping up that aren't required, right? There's no law that says you have to have dad's time off, right? Like, but companies are recognizing that when they care for their staff stick around, retention rates go up, and benefits can work both ways. Rather than just thinking of benefits as what you have to have for your staff to make your jobs enticing, like, no, there's benefits back, right? There's a culture of belonging that grows. Um, I'm wondering, like, a lot of dads that I engage with, and I'm sure you engage with in your work, they're corporate leaders, they're team leaders, they're kind of like upper level uh, staff or people in positions of power with, let's just be honest, like with more income, right? And so with more income comes more flexibility and freedom, so to speak. And I'm just curious, are you seeing like inroads for, blue collar or lower class people, parents, families that have similar opportunities to kind of like be present, right? Because I feel like in my conversations with dads, they have that flexibility to set a policy or have the time off, the PTO, benefit. Whereas, people that are working gig jobs, doing the DoorDash thing or the Uber driving, like if they're not working, they're not getting paid, right? And so there's a different need and a different challenge for that message to penetrate.
Very much. I think that that time gap to be able to do that if you're not a senior leader is still incredibly challenging today, right? I mean, inflation's going up. Families are caring about whether they can pay the bills next month, whether they can get food on the table, right? Those challenges are real and they're every day. What I think is the shift that we talked about earlier is also the cultural shift. More Americans are employed in corporate America than any other factor. And that has a huge influence in how all the other types of work and industries behave. So we're seeing real huge shifts take place at the corporate level that is impacting all other places of work, but not enough to your point. What I think where they lose in that time capacity just simply because they're too stretched to begin with, we're seeing fatherhood take place in other areas like culture and the arts that we've never really seen before either in the past decade. So I get thrilled when a rapper or an athlete is carrying their kiddo to the mic to talk about the after game points, right? Because that just never was happening years ago. But really meshing fatherhood and life and work together is becoming more visible. And I think that's going to have a huge influence as well for the better.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that aspect of this, but yeah, just the number of influencers too on Instagram, TikTok, what have you, of dads just showing up and not making fun of, oh, dads are lazy or dads are disconnected. There are those out there for sure, but more dads saying like, hey, this is how I'm changing, the story for me. This is the model I'm presenting to my children rather than just relying on, past messages or whatnot. And so yeah, I love those. And it's from all political stripes, right? Like it's not like
Yeah,
any one type of dad or any one segment of our population is calling for this change. It's everyone recognizing something needs to shift, right? Like we've gone too far in one direction. Maybe we need to backpedal. So I love it.
that's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about your work, but I'm just curious, like behind the scenes, right? Like you're a human being, you're married, you've got a child, you're a mom yourself. Like what in your personal life with the relationship you have with your dad or what you see your husband doing kind of gives you hope as well on that kind of more personal level? How do you see this playing out in the non-professional spaces for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about that earlier, even with my own experience with my father, even at the times where he was stretched with his work or career and didn't have a lot of time in between the evening hours or weekends, he still made an intentional effort to make my interests his interests.
Hmm.
If he knew I was a lover of books and arts, he was going to read a bedtime story to me as a kid as many often times as he could. He was going to try to take me to the art galleries on the weekends or sign me up for summer art camp lessons as well too. So even though that might not have been his interest, he made my interest his, and that created even more quality time together in those moments. I also think about what my husband's journey into fatherhood has been like. And he was primarily our stay at home dad for many, many years up until recently, too. That rocked his own identity. That was a hard identity for his family and our community to really embrace because that was not the norm. And it has grown by a large percentage since then of more stay at home dads being part of our picture. But that was a big identity shift for him as well. But seeing all of the skills that he gained by doing that, and he's now back into the workforce, that's only been a positive, is to mesh those skills he gained at home and the skills that he's gaining at work as well.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, just those bedtime stories, those moments to really like build that trust and that self-esteem as you're well aware because our kids are about the same age. Like as you start to enter the teen years, girls just like really start to freak out on that self-esteem factor because of so many societal messages telling them they're not good enough, right? And even on Inside Out 2 that just came out, we saw that kind of played out in a really beautiful way that really has me thinking and making me realize how much more research I need to do to make sure that I'm not the one undermining that, self-esteem and trust in my children just because of, something I'm unintentionally doing with them. Um, but also recognizing just the small steps, right? Just showing an interest, sitting down and coloring or doing art with your child rather than spending that extra 5 minutes on an email or ignoring, the call for invitation to, be in community. So I love it. I love that you are able to, rely on those personal stories to also drive the mission of CareSprint and beyond. So but I would be remiss to say, like you mentioned this a couple times, but I really want to drive home that CareSprint is a resource for everyone, not just, the default parent of mom that many families fall into. So how can people find resources? How can they use CareSprint best?
Absolutely. Check out our open library, caresprint.org/library. And every month, the last Wednesday, we curate our library with recommended books, podcast episodes, research reports, employer playbooks as well. So all of the best experts out there, because we're definitely not the only ones, but we're bridging to their existing academic and expert-led research for folks to take that into their own learning and development. So check out our library. And we also work very closely with orgs and employers on how to measure the outcomes of their caregiving talent. We argue that is the next frontier of data because all caregivers are missing from our labor data, and we're here to to change that as well.
Awesome. And if someone wants to get involved, they have a resource or a book they want to recommend, is there an easy way for them to get that information to you?
Yes, all of that is on our site as well. So if they have recommended picks to add to our library, they can contact us there as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, hopefully you'll get a deluge after this goes live in a few weeks. But before we close, we love to end our weeks with a good dad joke or a cringeworthy one. Moms have good jokes too, so I know you've prepared some. So if you want to lay on us a great dad joke to close us out, the floor is yours.
Well, you teed it up with your mention of blockbuster movies. Did you hear about the latest pirate movie that is out this summer?
I didn't know there was one coming. No.
It's rated R.
Oh, that's a classic one. Thank you, Sarah. You did all dads some well-deserved praise with that joke, and I appreciate you bringing it here and giving us your words of wisdom and take on, the current trends and how dads can get more involved and be active participants in this care economy. So thank you. And everyone who's here, thanks for listening in. If you're listening later on, thanks for listening to the recording, and you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.